From cover to cover, she'll find every pearl. Welcome to Jenny Reads the World.
Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny, and today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in October. I read 17, and I will say I had a lot of 3 stars this month. So let's get to it. Okay. So book number 1, Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This was a thriller. So I'm going to start by giving you a trigger warning for domestic abuse. So this follows Jack and Grace, as well as Grace's younger sister Millie, who has Down syndrome. So when Grace meets Jack, she is really immediately drawn to him, in large part because he is so sweet to Millie. So Grace is not a full-time caretaker, but she is a primary carer of her sister. And ultimately the intent is once Grace finishes school, she's at like a boarding school or, a special needs school. When she finishes school, she's going to come and live with Grace. So Jack absolutely embraces this plan, right? Let's get married. We'll have a nice home for Grace. She'll come and live with us. So once they get married though, it turns out that maybe Jack had something else in mind. And things are not always what they seem behind closed doors. Dun, dun, dun. This one was actually pretty good. I would read this one again. Next up, The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This one is probably categorized as romantasy. So romantic book with a fantasy element. So this follows Oriah. I don't have any idea if that's how you say her name. If you are a audiobook listener and you know how this one is pronounced, let me know. So Oriah is the adopted daughter of, she's the adopted human daughter of the vampire king. So she lives with the vampire clan, even though she is human, and she must always be careful because if they lose control, she's lunch. So sometimes when I talk about these things, they sound just completely ridiculous, but I swear this one was actually really quite good. So Oriah enters a contest that is being held by the community goddess, and the winner, human or vampire, of said contest will get their wish granted. So nobody, of course, expects Oriah to win. She is the sad, puny human who is going to probably be the first one out, right? I find that this is a common theme in these types of romantasy books. Think like Fourth Wing or Divergent or Hunger Games, any of these, oh, you are the absolute underdog. No way that you have a chance in this. And that theme is here as well. So, but Oriah allies herself with several other vampires, and they decide to go through this contest together. So this is part of a series. This is book 1. I knew there was a second book, and I think the third book just dropped maybe today or yesterday. Very recently. So I will definitely 100% be continuing with the series. I am invested. Next up, The Truth About the Devlins by Lisa Scottline. I'm going to categorize this as a family drama. I think it was trying to go for a thriller. It was not thrilling. So I listened to this as an audiobook. Brian and I went to Gatlinburg for his birthday a couple of weeks ago, and we listened to this in the car as an audiobook. Brian slept through part of it, so to clarify, I was driving. It's fine that he was sleeping. I was really disappointed in this, and I think a big part of that is because I thought it was going to be a thriller, and it was just family drama. So this follows a dude named TJ who is freshly released from prison. He was in prison for issues related to his alcoholism. He is now, in AA and trying to move forward with his life. He's working at his family's law firm, which is his parents and both of his siblings, both of whom are all of whom I should say are lawyers. So he's definitely the black sheep of the family. He's working there as an investigator. So much of the book ends up just being about TJ's alcoholism and the family drama. And that final, really exciting scene, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? It just was so ridiculous to me. The author just every few lines was coming up with yet another reason that TJ couldn't use his cell phone to call for help. And it just, I think by the 4th excuse, I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Anyway, I'd skip this one. Next up, A Calamity of Souls by David Baldacci. This one is historical fiction. This author was recommended to me by a coworker, but not necessarily this book. I kind of have mixed feelings about this. I did really like this, but it felt a lot like something maybe that I'd already read, so it didn't feel very new. This was set in 1968 in Southern Virginia, and it follows Jack, who is a white lawyer defending a black client who has been accused of killing a white couple. So even just when I'm giving you this plot, you're probably thinking of a couple other famous stories that follow a similar mentality. It was extremely well written. The characters were great, very good, complex relationships. I would be interested in reading more from this author. I just didn't feel like I learned anything new. And that's something I like about historical fiction, is that I get to feel like I learned something about a new time period or a new experience, and I definitely didn't get that sensation. Okay, next up, this is actually two different books, but they're part of a duology, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. This is the Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig. This is categorized as gothic fantasy romance. I'm calling this fantasy romance instead of romantasy because this was fantasy with romance element to it as opposed to a romance with a fantasy element to it. I loved this, particularly book one. I definitely rated this 5 stars. It kind of started out a little bit slow for me where I was like, what am I reading? But I was in it. So I think you probably, if you've watched other of my videos, one of the things I talk about, especially with fantasy, is I need to believe you. I need to buy it. I need to believe in this world, and I was in this world. So this is set in a world where 2 different types of magic kind of exist. The first, which is the sanctioned, the okay kind of magic, involves using kind of what I visualize tarot cards, and each card has a specific function. So if you're using a maiden card, then it's gonna make you the most beautiful version of yourself. If you're using a scythe card, you could be using it to control somebody else and get them to do what you want. But each one of those cards comes with a price. So if you're using the card to control somebody else, it's gonna cause you physical pain, for example. So that's the okay magic. It's okay to use it because the magic is contained to the cards. The other type of magic, there is a mist blanketing this community. And if you wander off into the mist, you may become infected. And if you become infected, then you must be killed. You are tainted, it's bad, the magic is gonna take over you. It's no longer contained to a card, it's now controlling who you are. So this story ends up following Elspeth. Elspeth grows up in a country little town. She lives with her uncle, is with his family. And they've basically been keeping her hidden away from everybody because she was infected as a child. So they've kept her hidden away because it's dangerous. Somebody could find out that she is infected. But now she's reached an age where she's got to go to court. And she ends up meeting people who are trying to figure out a way to lift the mist and help cure those who have been infected. So there's a line in this that says, he came for the girl and he got the monster instead. This was so good. This was so good. So read these for sure. 100% would recommend these. Sorry, my dog's decided to lick his leg in the middle of this. The Night Agent, Matthew Quirk. I didn't like this. So this book felt so cliche to me. You have read this book already. You have seen this show. You have seen this movie. There is actually a series, I think, on Netflix now. I have no intention of watching it. If you have seen Jack Ryan, if you have seen Jack Reacher, this is the FBI agent who's got to go save the damsel in distress from the corrupt government agency. I've seen it. I've read it. I'm done. It wasn't badly written. You might like it. I don't know. We used to live here. Marcus Kliewer? Thoughts? Kliewer? I don't know. I'm going to categorize this as horror thriller. I have been seeing this book absolutely everywhere. This was like the must-read thriller of October 2024. It was weird. The book was weird. I don't think there's any other way to say it. Apparently, this book is being turned into a Netflix movie featuring Blake Lively. I can't picture that at all. When I was picturing these characters, Blake Lively did not enter my mind. So I don't know, maybe this is just a rumor. For Blake Lively's sake, I kind of hope so. So this follows Eve Eve just bought a big old house out in the middle of nowhere with her girlfriend, Charlie. Eve is home alone and there's a knock on the door. She opens it and there is a man standing there with his wife and children. And he claims that he grew up in this household and he would love, could he just bring his family in and give them a quick tour. Eve kind of reluctantly allows this to happen, but now she cannot get them to leave. Then a blizzard hits and she really can't get them to leave. And it just kind of continues down this very, very strange path. When I finished reading this book, I think I just sat there and stared at the last page, like, what did I just read? I don't want to tell you not to read this, but if you really need like a good closure at the end, you're not going to get it. This book does not, you don't get closure. Summer Romance by Annabel Monaghan. Contemporary romance is what I'm going to call this. I was inspired to read this by another YouTuber who described this essentially as one of the best books that she has ever read. So it's possible that I went into this with too high of expectations. I did like it. I gave it 4 stars, but when I was preparing this and I was kind of coming up with what I was going to say about the book, I couldn't remember anything about the book, so it didn't leave an impact. We'll put it that way. This follows Allie. Allie is a single mom who's been going through a particularly rough patch. She's recently divorced. Her mom has died. Her husband has run off, and she's just trying to put one foot in front of the other. And one day she's at the dog park and she meets Ethan. And Ethan is a lawyer. He is just in town for the summer visiting his family. Now, Ethan remembers her from when she was a teenager. She does not remember him, but he remembers her. And he remembers her as this like really vibrant, feisty character. And now she's kind of just drudgerly, going through life, trying to keep herself together. So this book is really actually a little bit less about their romance and more about Allie finding herself again. So I liked it. It's not groundbreaking, but it was good. I would recommend it for sure. So next up, this is something that was a little bit different for me. I read Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library by Grabenstein. This is categorized as middle grade fiction, and I can't tell you the last time I read something middle grade, but I loved it. It was so, so charming, and this book makes me want to read middle grade fiction. So this follows 12-year-old Kyle Keeley. Kyle loves games, all games. His favorite game maker is Luigi Lemoncello, who is also from his hometown. And recently, Mr. Lemoncello has been part of a committee that has helped build this wonderful state-of-the-art library in the middle of the town. And the town hasn't had a library for a while. So this is extra exciting. So Kyle wins a contest to spend the night as part of the grand opening of the library, along with 11 other kids. So the next morning, they find out they can't leave. They get up and they find that the challenge is not over yet. And Mr. Lemoncello has another contest for them. So the reward will go to whichever student is able to figure out a way out of the library, not through the front door, using the resources of the library. So they have to go do research, find clues, etc., to figure out a way to get out of the library. This had very strong like Willy Wonka vibes, but it was so cute and so charming and fun, and to see the kids like figuring these things out and reading these puzzles, I loved it. This is part of a series. I would absolutely keep reading it. One of Us is Dead, Jeneva Rose. This is a thriller, so this is a little more in my normal camp. So I have read quite a few books by this author, and I actually think this one might have been my favorite. So this follows a group of women in Buckhead, Georgia, and it's primarily set in the town exclusive beauty shop, but Steel Magnolias, this is not. This is a little more maybe Real Housewives of Atlanta. These women are wealthy, powerful, catty to the core. They bicker and plot and scheme and backstab, and by the end of the book, one of them will be dead. So which one of them isn't going to make it, and how did she end up that way? Hang in there. Check this one out for sure. I like this. Next up, The Breakaway by Jennifer Weiner. I've read quite a few books by this author, and I'm kind of over her maybe a little bit. Like maybe I'm just kind of outgrown her a little bit, maybe. I don't know. You've probably actually heard of her before and don't realize it. Do you remember the movie came out like 20 years ago, probably, and it starred Cameron Diaz, called In Her Shoes. Do you guys remember that movie? Anyway, Jennifer Weiner wrote the book. So this one follows Abby Stern, a plus-sized woman who just cannot seem to find her way in life. The book starts with Abby going to a bachelorette party, and she meets this guy in a bar, and she ends up going home with him and having a one-night stand, something that she describes as very out of character for him, or for her. But somewhere in the middle of the night, she's like, okay, this was fun, I'm gonna peace. And she gets up and she just ghosts the guy. She doesn't leave a number or anything, she just leaves. 2 years later, she is leading a bike tour through New York, and who does she see but the one-night stand? So the whole thing ends up with her like questioning her whole life story. What is she gonna do? Is she, what does she want? And she has these really complicated relationships, particularly with her very, very thin mother. There's a lot of really complicated relationships. So this might sound like a kind of a traditional romance story, but it is definitely not. There's a lot of really complex relationships that go through this that far beyond those with between her and the one-night stand and other men in her life. Hello Stranger, Katherine Center. This one is a more traditional romance, but it is more on the like not love category for me as well. So this follows Sadie. Sadie's a struggling portrait artist. She's just wanting to prove herself to not only herself, but to her dad, who wanted her to follow a more traditional lucrative career. And she finally gets her big break. She's going to get into this very elite competition. She's going to really get some recognition here. And when right before the competition, she gets into an accident. She gets a brain injury. And the part of her brain that is damaged is the part that allows her to recognize faces. So she basically has face blindness. So here she is on the cusp of doing this portrait competition, and she can't see the features that would allow her to paint a good portrait. On top of all of that, then she meets two men. One is the local veterinarian, and one is a guy who lives down her hallway. And how is she going to maintain these relationships when she can't recognize them? This does contain an element that I absolutely hate in books, particularly romance novels, which is that Sadie refuses to talk to people about her condition. So she won't tell these guys or really anyone that, hey, I'm struggling with something right now and I'm having difficulty recognizing your face. When you walk in the room, maybe just be like, hey, it's me, Bob. And if so, all of your problems are basically going to disappear. So I get really frustrated when books make basically the whole plot line is just miscommunication. But other than that, I did quite like it. The brothers Hawthorne, Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is book 4 of the Inheritance Game series. I think she's written another one, and I am just absolutely at a loss of what she could possibly have left to say about this story. I really liked the first book, and for me, they've just gone dramatically downhill. I feel like she is stretching. She is stretching this storyline, and I'm done. I will not be reading any more of this series. Move on. After I do Taylor Jenkins Reid, I think this would be categorized as romance. I've read a lot of TJR's books, particularly like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Loved that. She wrote Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising. Oh, and Carrie Soto was back. Loved Carrie Soto. That was so good. This one was maybe not as highly rated for me. This one maybe was a little bit different. So this follows Laura and Ryan. Laura and Ryan have been married for 10 years, and they've kind of reached a point in their relationship where they're just not really talking to each other anymore. They're definitely taking each other for granted, fighting all the time about stupid little things. And so they decide that a good thing for their relationship would be to separate for 1 year and have absolutely no contact with each other for 1 year. So it kind of follows Lauren in particular to see, is she going to basically refine herself? Is she going to find that maybe she has outgrown her husband, or is she going to start to value him again? What's going to happen at the end of that 1 year? And what happens if one of them wants to get back together and one of them doesn't? So it was actually pretty good. I did enjoy this. I would recommend it. 13, Steve Cavanaugh. I'm going to categorize this as a courtroom drama. This was easily the biggest disappointment I had in the month of October. I had heard so many good things about this book, and this was absolutely categorized to me as a must-read thriller. I was seeing all of these like TikToks and things that were like, this is always on my list of recommendations for thrillers. This is not a thriller. A thriller, this is not. It is a courtroom drama. the big twist. Yeah, they put it, it's on the cover. See that right there? That's the big twist, guys. So if you go into this knowing that it's a courtroom drama and not a thriller, it's a pretty good read. He's a good writer. He does build a lot of suspense, but it is not that like twisty, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen thriller. So maybe if I had gone into it knowing that that's what it was, I would have liked it better. I don't know. And my last read of October, book 17, Two Dead Wives by Adele Parks. This is a thriller. So this was actually book 2 of the DCI Clement series. I had no idea that this was part of a series. This book is told from multiple points of view, one of which includes DCI Clements, who is the police officer in this story. I didn't really feel like DCI Clements was that important to the story. So it feels weird to me that she's the like recurring character apparently in the series, because she just didn't feel that important to me. But this follows a woman named Kylie. Kylie has gone missing, and now that she has gone missing, it comes out that she was actually living a double life. So she was married to 2 different men, one as Kai and one as Lee. So did one of her husbands find out that she was living this double life and kill her? What happened to her? Is she dead? Is she just missing? What's going on? And are the children that she left behind safe? You know, are they going to be hurt? So I actually really liked this. A lot of the suspense ended up coming from kind of some of the subplots that were in this, which I kind of thought was a little bit different and a different way of managing the suspense. And I really did like that. So if I had any complaint about it, it was that it kind of tied up a little too neatly in a bow at the end. But other than that, really liked it. Definitely would recommend this one. All right, there you go. Have you read any of those? Let me know in the comments. And what was your favorite read for the month of October? Have a good month, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.